The Ukrainian military is making major gains. They have claimed to have shot down an Iranian-made drone in Ukraine's Kharkiv region. This is the first time that Russian forces were spotted using Iranian drones to support the war in Ukraine. These drones are capable of surveillance, electronic warfare, and carrying out missile strikes. Former U.S. Ambassador to the United Nations and former National Security Advisor John Bolton joined me earlier to discuss Putin and his potential to use nuclear weapons. Ambassador Bolton, nice to see you, sir.
Glad to be back.
Ambassador Bolton, do you think it's realistic or likely or probable that Russian President Vladimir Putin could use chemical weapons or nuclear weapons or a mine alarmist?
No, I don't think it's likely, but I think the circumstance under which Putin could contemplate using a tactical nuclear weapon is when Russian troops are in full retreat heading to the Russian border, or when Ukraine forces might be crossing the border. We're not there yet, despite these recent successes by Ukraine, but this is a very dangerous position for Russia to be in, and it's now a more dangerous position for Putin in his own domestic political terms, I think, than at any point in the war.
You know, it's like anyone who, to me, who's so cruel and insane to start this particular war to begin with, I think is capable of doing cruel, insane things that are unthinkable to me, such as that.
Well, I think he does it in a position of desperation. He certainly doesn't do it when he's winning, which he's not right now. He doesn't even do it when it's close or when he's losing by a little bit. But if it turned into a catastrophe, then I think to save his own regime, to throw the chessboard on the floor and knock the pieces over, I think he would be capable of doing it then, yes.
So does he have anything to lose? I mean, once he's, if the war ends and he's cornered and Russia's lost, he doesn't have his big dream of regaining the Soviet Union as great empire, what does he have to lose?
No, I think at that point in desperation, it's a Hitler in the bunker scenario, and I think we'd be at risk. I think we need to begin to think about the implications of what Putin may do if this Ukrainian success continues, because it does have the possibility of turning things upside down. If Russian morale is bad in the north, it's probably bad throughout the army.
I worry that we always look at these things through our eyes, through Western eyes, like, you know, we'd never do that. So, you know, why would he do that?
Well, this is the phenomenon known as mirror imaging at the State Department. It's a big mistake. I think Putin has a very different calculus than we do. The casualties Russia suffered alone for minimal territorial gains that he's been willing to endure shows his value on human life is a lot different than ours.
All right, let me turn to Iran. Can you make an estimate, a good, you have a factual base to make an estimate how far off they are from making a nuclear weapon that can be delivered?
Well, I think the delivery part is the problem. I think they're very close to nuclear weapons, and I think they have been for some time. They could get one from North Korea tomorrow, in fact. We just don't know a lot about the Iranian nuclear weapons program, especially the weaponization component. Despite what advocates of the nuclear deal say, there are Iranian military facilities that have never been visited by the International Atomic Energy Agency that we don't have access to. They're a lot farther along than we think.
Well, okay, so if they're closer to getting a nuclear weapon, I mean, is there any way to measure how close they are to getting a delivery system so that they have actually an effective nuclear weapon?
Well, if they wanted a ballistic missile to deliver it, fortunately, they've had a lot of failures on their missile tests over the years. But remember, if you put a nuclear weapon in a tramp steamer, you could sail it into New York Harbor and detonate it in the harbor. You could bring it across the southern border and take it into a major city. You can do it the old-fashioned way. What Iran wants, though, is the capability, I think, for regional and global purposes to have ballistic missiles. But if it wanted to give a nuclear weapon to a terrorist group, it could do it.
In 2015, when the nuclear deal was struck, between 2015 and 2018, when President Trump pulled the United States out of it, was Iran violating the terms of the agreement?
Well, we don't know the answer to that question. I suspect they were. There are a lot of potential hidden facilities. They could subcontract uranium enrichment to North Korea. But the central flaw of the deal was allowing Iran to do uranium enrichment at all.
So I always worried, thought that not enough attention was given to the fact that in 2015, as part of the deal, all this money was unfrozen, giving Iran an incredible amount of money to spread around the Middle East and to create all sorts of mischief, lack of a better word, and destabilize the region.
Yeah, it was between $100 and $150 billion, depending on your estimate. Some assets were unfrozen, some were transferred directly to creditors. But it was a huge boost for Iran. It allowed them, as you say, to engage in terrorist activities, to beef up the nuclear program, the ballistic missile program, engage in domestic public works, and it opened up possibilities for further deals. And that's what they want to have the U.S. go back in now to unfreeze assets that were frozen since Trump withdrew. It's throwing a lifeline to an economic lifeline to a regime that's in real trouble right now.
In 2015, the deal was struck with the United States signed it. It wasn't ratified. It wasn't a treaty ratified by the Senate, as all treaties are required by the Constitution. Was this in 2015 a treaty and should have been ratified? Because if it were ratified by the Senate, unlikely that President Trump could have just gotten us out of it. He couldn't have without, the Senate.
Well, it unquestionably was a treaty. It deals with arms control matters. Every significant arms control agreement the U.S. has ever entered into has gone through the Senate ratification process. Why didn't it happen in 2015? Because the Obama administration knew they couldn't get a two-thirds majority. Why does the Constitution require a two-thirds majority? Because they know how serious treaties are, and it requires a supermajority.
Hey guys, it's Rob Carson. September is historically the worst performing month for the stock market, so you better be ready for it. The Fed continues to aggressively raise rates, and JP Morgan is forecasting another mega rate hike September the 21st. Is that why Jamie Dimon said an economic hurricane is coming our way? Well, gold and silver have remained remarkably stable despite the Fed aggressively raising rates today. The Patriot Gold Group has a special incentive for Newsmax viewers. Huge! Now precious metals investors can enjoy the no-fee-for-life gold and silver IRA on qualifying rollovers, or enjoy free, discreet, insured shipping on all direct gold and silver purchases. Here's the number, 800-356-4470. Call 800-356-4470 today.